Hello, everyone. We're going to get started. We're a minute after. Thank you for joining. We are starting our webinar from our saves to results that matter, the real ROI of legal tech. I do want to preface this. We're having some technical difficulties with one of our speakers. He's still trying to join, but we have Ryan and Dennis here. So I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'll be your host here, Juliana Dunleavy. This is just a quick confidentiality and disclaimer. This is just, you guys, we're appreciative of you joining. Feel free to share within your organizations, but do not share outside your organizations. And this is a little bit of housekeeping to optimize your participation in today's webinar. Let's go over a few housekeeping items. All participants are muted. Our session is being recorded, and you will receive an email over the next day or so with a link to the recording for you to share. Our presentation will last about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on our Q&A, and we will begin answering questions entered into the Q&A panel. You'll see that little icon in the top of your panel with the little box with the question mark. Please feel free to add questions there throughout the webinar, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. If we don't address any your question while we're here together, you will receive an email likely from someone on our team that has the knowledge question. And then I'll let the panel take over here. Dennis, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we can go from there.
Well, thank you so much, Juliana. And I just want to first off just welcome everyone to this webinar today. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule and joining us. Let me introduce myself briefly. There's a little bit of echo. But my name is Dennis Garcia. I am the Vice President and General Counsel for Latera. I'm based in the Chicago area. I've been at Latera now for a little bit close to 6 months. For folks who may not be so familiar with Latera, we offer a wide range of legal technology solutions to law firms and also to corporate legal departments. Before joining Latera, I worked as an in-house lawyer at Microsoft for 22 years. And before Microsoft, I worked as an in-house lawyer for Accenture and for IBM. So my legal career has been working for technology companies as an in-house lawyer. And so I will turn it over to Ryan, who is a senior business leader, to introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Dennis. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So my name is Ryan Reed. I'm a contracting process advisor in our Chevron's Contracting Center of Excellence, based in Houston, and I sit in the corporate supply chain function. So I'm not a lawyer, just to clear that, but I do have 18 years in contracting experience in the oil and gas business in different functions, in operations, and mostly operations and capital project support.
Well, thank you, Ryan, and thank you to Chevron for being a terrific Latera customer. I know our other colleague, Joe Borstein, is having, I think, some technical difficulties getting into the webinar, but when he joins, we'll ask Joe to introduce himself. So we'll just proceed forward if we can, and want to just spend a little time talking about the agenda. If we could bring up that slide, please. Okay, great, there it is. And so this is what we want to cover in our discussion today. Let me just sort of take you through the agenda at a very high level. We want to provide just sort of a basic foundational perspective as to what do we mean by the quote unquote value translation gap. One of the key takeaways here is that we think legal departments, lawyers and legal professionals can do a better job demonstrating what is the true business outcomes or impact in embracing legal technology solutions. And we'll talk about that in more detail. And then we'll pivot to Ryan, and Ryan will spend some time sharing the Chevron team's experience with working with one of Latera's key solutions known as Kira. And Ryan will talk about their experience and the business outcomes and value in using Kira. assuming Joe is able to join us, and if Joe can't join us, then I will certainly try my best on speaking on Joe's behalf. But Joe has a lot of experience working with law firms and legal departments on AI and legal tech implementations. And so Joe and/or I will talk about how do we define success in this area. And then collectively as a group, we'll try to make this as real as possible and provide you with some takeaways, some go-dos that you can incorporate in your daily practice in being able to showcase and demonstrate to senior business leaders that when you're using legal technology tools, what are its true outcomes and business impact. Okay, and then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A, and I would just ask folks to please start thinking about your questions, which you may want to pose to us. If you have questions, please feel free to share those questions on the right-hand top side where there's a question mark. You can add them in here. So let's start talking about what this value translation gap is at a very high level. And if we can go to the next slide, please. And what we're seeing from some results from Deloitte is that generally speaking, legal departments and legal teams, the vast majority of them do a very good job at tracking some key information, such as information about how much they're actually spending, whether it's internal spending or maybe with outside legal providers, right? But what they don't do so well, it seems like less than a quarter of legal departments actually do a very good job at truly measuring the value that they're deriving or creating by deploying and using AI or other legal technology tools. And that's where we want to focus our attention and time here today. Just as an example, imagine if you're a general counsel and you've received budgetary approval from your CFO to spend $200,000 on a new contract AI tool. And you've deployed that tool, and you think so far that tool has been very successful, and it's helping you review contracts more quickly, let's say at a 40% faster rate. But then let's say your CFO comes to you and she wants to know, well, what did we really get in return for that $200,000 investment? If you go back to her and you say, well, we're processing 2,000 more contracts this quarter with the same exact headcount. If you tell her that, she may then respond and say, well, that's great to hear. So does that mean that I can reduce your headcount? And of course, you don't want to be in that sort of conversation with your CFO. It's a moment that every general counsel may dread, but you don't want efficiency or productivity gains to be an argument to reduce your team or to have budget cuts in your legal department. Instead, you want to focus on the strategic value of your technology investments and how that's providing high impact and business outcomes to your business teams. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Traditionally, what we've seen is legal teams do a good job at measuring things such as the number of contracts which could be reviewed over a period of time. Perhaps they do a good job at measuring the turnaround time for legal to get back to business clients. And maybe they could even share information about the number of hours saved. And while having that information is a good starting point, you want to figure out how do you translate that information, which is really more activities and inputs, into real outcomes. At least in my experience, a lot of senior business leaders are focused on areas such as, especially the sales leaders, Dennis, how are you and your teams helping us close deals sooner so that we can capture revenue faster? Or Dennis and your team, how are you helping us reduce our spend on vendors? How are you helping us reduce our risk profile? What's the true return on investment or ROI when it comes to the legal tech and AI tools that you're using? That's what you want to be able to explain and translate in more business person speak to senior business leaders. And we're going to show you how to translate that and how to do that. If we can go to the next slide, please. And this is actually one of my favorite slides, and I think it provides a nice checklist to focus on the true outcomes that matter from a business perspective when legal departments are using and deploying technology. The first thing which you want to focus on is this notion of moving the business forward and enabling the business. How are you helping to accelerate and capturing revenue in the business by using that technology? How are you helping to avoid or mitigate risks or to improve your compliance position? The third key outcome is reducing costs, reducing monies leaving your business to others. How do you make sure you're managing those costs as best as you can? Then finally, the fourth key outcome is when you're using AI tools or other legal technology, how is that helping you engage in smart risk-taking and smart decisions? And so, these areas really are not inputs or activities, if you will, but they're more premised on true business outcomes. And so what we want to do for the remaining time today is we're going to hear some examples as to how we're putting this in motion, based upon these four outcomes. And so Ryan's going to spend some time talking about his experience and Chevron's experience with our Kira solution. Joe or myself will talk a little bit about what success looks like, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some tools and frameworks that you can use on your daily experience. So let's start, if we can go to the next slide. We're going to begin with Ryan's story, and Ryan's going to provide us with an overview as to how he and his team have been using Kira to yield some really strong business outcomes.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Yeah, so just a little background. We've been using Kira at Chevron for a few years. We actually picked up Kira as part of one of our acquisitions. One of the companies we acquired was using it, and we found out about it, and we thought, this is a great tool to help us get more insights and value out of our contract. So we started using it, and at the beginning it was mostly searching and analyzing legal terms, kind of the indemnity, liability, warranties, and we got a lot of value out of that, especially with other mergers and acquisitions we've done since then. But then we also started looking at, how can we use this from a commercial perspective, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm more interested in the commercial terms than the legal terms. And, we found, there's definitely an opportunity here. So the challenge is, we have thousands and thousands of contracts across our company. We're a very large company, and we process a lot of invoices on a daily basis. So, how do we make sure that we're not paying for stuff that we shouldn't be paying for? There's different things. You could say, well, the price. We do have ways to check the price, with our catalogs, but it's a lot harder to check. Does the invoice actually meet the terms of the contract? Not just is the price correct? Because you could have an item that, the price is correct, it's the negotiated price, but it doesn't actually qualify for, compensation based on the contract terms. So a little while ago, someone came to me and they shared with me what they call a cut sheet. So it's basically kind of a one-page document of the contract compensation for the commercial terms of the contract. And on this cut sheet, they had things like, when do we pay overtime? When do we pay for per diems when people travel to and from the work site? When do we pay for fuel and markups and all these long list of commercial items that we pay for? And so I asked them, how'd you create this? And they actually created it manually. They went through the contract and searched for all these terms and then copied and pasted it and put it onto a document. And it took a couple of hours to do it for one contract. And I said, we can do this with Kira, a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently at scale. So we kind of took that idea and looked at the different clauses that they were putting in their summary, and a lot of them are very, very kind of specific, and so You can go to the next slide. So what we did with that cut sheet that they called it is, we took it to, we tried Cura out, and Cura has some commercial fields that do a good job, but we found that the results we got with the built-ins were a little bit more broad than we were looking for. So we actually built some custom fields, and a little more specific, targeted at exactly very specific language. In some cases, maybe just 1 or 2 sentences, and that gave us the ability to kind of develop this cut sheet that was very concise and very specific to certain commercial terms. So we did use the old machine learning where we trained some of the new smart fields, custom smart fields with the machine learning technology. Now we have the ability to do that with just a prompt. So even creating the new smart fields is a lot easier than it used to be. And so we were able to actually build us a tool that we can use to extract all these terms at scale, instead of going through the contract one at a time and copying and pasting the terms.
Ryan, if I could just this is great. I appreciate, of course, Chevron being an outstanding Latera customer, but just some initial observations on this. It seems like when you thought about this project and using Cura, you said to yourself, well, what is the business problem or challenge that you're trying to solve, right? And I think about it from a general counsel and legal perspective. Oftentimes, we're thinking of legal problem solvers, if you will, which is good, but we have our business clients, and we need to think about, with our legal support and using tools, how are we helping the business, right, yield outcomes. And so what I love about this is that there was a business challenge in helping Chevron get its arms around all of the various different contracts you have in place with vendors, and to try to help manage those vendors in a more productive and efficient fashion, which hopefully then yields into making sure that you're not overspending with the vendors, and you're managing your vendors appropriately. And I also like this notion about these summaries, these one-page summaries. Enables you to sort of simplify what you've agreed to with these vendors. Sometimes in my experience with vendor contracts, they can be 50, 70, 100 pages long, very voluminous, but being able to sort of summarize the key important terms for you and your team to be aware of and to manage them appropriately. Also, I'm assuming enabled you to move with more speed and being more informed as to, what is it which you've actually signed up to, with your partners.
Right. Yeah. So the idea is to get, put that one pager in the hands of the person who's approving the invoice, because a lot of times that's an operations person, someone out in the field that doesn't really know the contract, and they're not going to go and look up the contract and look up each of the terms, that apply to the invoice. So they need a quick one pager that's just on their desktop, that they can see, okay, this guy's charging me for overtime. Does this meet the requirements of the contract? Yes or no? And then they can easily either approve it or not approve it. So probably most of the time they were just approving it because they just assumed, yeah, it's obviously probably meets the terms of the contract, but they probably didn't check before.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know with my business clients, I love my business clients. They're great. But they're very busy. They may also have some limited attention spans at times, and we cannot expect them to go through a long contract. So to the extent that we can just sort of make these contracts easily digestible for our business teams to clearly understand, they really appreciate that, and it allows them, again, to move with a really with speed and a smart risk-taking orientation, no doubt.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'll add is, with the smart summaries, we can now summarize those terms into more easier to digest language than the contract language. Or if a section was a few paragraphs long, the smart summary can condense it into one paragraph, very concise. It's really easy to read.
Thank you. Oh, that's great.
We can go to the next slide. So, what are the results? This is what we're talking about today. What's the value here? So there are a lot of things, we talked about saving time. It takes less time to create a contract summary. you can create more summaries in a shorter amount of time. So it kind of like, it's the same concept of getting a contract signed quicker so I can get revenue. Well, in this case, if we have, a cut sheet in the hands for hundreds of contracts instead of, 10 or 20, that's going to save us money, at a lot higher scale. And then, the saving money part, if we can identify where the things we're getting invoiced for don't meet the contract terms, we can prevent money from going out the door, because once it goes out the door, it's a lot harder to get it back than stopping it from going out in the first place. So those are kind of the very direct value drivers. And then there's some more indirect ones that we can get from this, kind of like benchmarking. So we can take a look at all the terms across a certain service line, for example, and we can find, okay, are we being consistent with how we're compensating all the contractors in this space that are kind of competing for the same type of work? And if there's an outlier, maybe that raises the flag, why is this term different than the other contracts in this same service line? Maybe there's a good reason for that, but maybe that's an opportunity for us to go and renegotiate contract terms. So lots of, kind of flow down impacts from doing this also, not just the direct savings and cost and time.
Yeah, that's great. And just a few thoughts on that. I think it's spectacular. I mean, this whole notion, if I went to my CFO, who I report to, Latera, and I was able to go to her and say, we're using certain technologies in a way to be able to save real dollars and to prevent revenue leakage, to lower our costs with our vendors, maybe across the board. I mean, that is, something which is obviously very tangible, very sort of business outcome focused, which, her and of course our CEO would really, get behind, and then, be even more supportive of using certain technologies. And I think also this notion of, learning more about maybe some of the non-standard provisions that you might have agreed to with other vendors, right? That can help you identify potential areas of risk, and it can probably help you be even smarter, right, in future contract negotiations with vendors. If you see a particular issue is coming up time and time again, maybe it makes sense to come up with a fallback which is acceptable to Chevron, right? Or if you've seen it come up in just a few occasions, then you could, message to the business folks, this provision we should not be replicating across various vendors, right? We should avoid this, right? So it just enables you to be even smarter in being able to make sure you're getting high value from your vendors, and being smarter in the contract formation processes with your vendors.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the last slide. So last thing I wanted to share is just, how are we kind of implementing this? And we have what we call the Cura Black Belt program. So it's kind of a little workshop for, a smaller group of folks to kind of just help them become experts with the tool, and then help them become champions of using the tool and helping others to use it also. So, in my case, I'm helping train our supply chain folks. We usually have our supply chain development folks, which are kind of younger in their careers and spread across the organization. And we take them through the Black Belt program, and get them competent and using Cura at kind of a basic level, and then a more advanced level, and have check-ins along the way just to make sure they're progressing and they're using it to its full capabilities. Because you can have a software or some sort of a digital solution, but if you don't train your people and they don't know how to use it, then you're not going to get the value out of it. So it's not just having a tool, it's about implementing that and making sure you translate that into organizational capability to actually get the value.
Yeah, no, that seems, that's, in my experience, you can have the best tools, but if no one's using them and consuming them, then you're not going to get the true value from them, right? And sometimes, especially with legal teams and contract teams, management teams, contract management teams, sometimes they could be resistant to change, quite frankly. And so to the extent that you can make it easier for them to understand the solution, what it's all about, to train them, to help them along the way, to maybe have some people on the team who could be viewed as champs of those solutions, where maybe, like a power user like yourself, right, who can then educate others, right, is very, very helpful. But when you're thinking about acquiring a solution, you have to say to yourself, how are you going to create an environment where people are actually going to use these solutions? And of course, you want to make sure that you're selecting solutions which are fairly straightforward and easy to use, right? At least in my experience.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks. Yeah. So that's our use case, and happy to if there's any questions. So.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Ryan. And so, well, I know Joe's not here, and Joe is an incredible thought leader in the legal tech space. So I will do my best to do a Joe Burstein impression, but I'm sure that may not be totally perfect. But I'll do my best here to talk about some takeaways and some experiences which Joe has shared with myself and Ryan and others as to what separates or what constitutes success in this area when you're embracing AI solutions and legal technology tools. A few things to think about. If what Joe has shared with us, he's very straightforward. He said he was very blunt with us, saying that many legal AI implementations don't move forward, or they may fail because they don't demonstrate true business value, and not because they're not demonstrating value or they're not working. It's because teams skip the translation step that Brian and myself have described earlier. And Joe was saying that a pattern that he sees time and time and time again is a legal team or the contract team may acquire a tool, they get people trained on it, they start using it, they're trying to measure time savings or accuracy, they share those metrics to a CFO or to a CEO, and then for whatever reason, the senior business leaders don't seem impressed by those metrics. The technology is working fine, but no one really connected the dots to show how this technology is helping the legal or contracting team, helping the business achieve certain clear business outcomes and impacts. And so, that's very different from what Ryan described, right? I mean, the Chevron team started with a true, legitimate business problem that they were trying to solve, and that was revenue leakage, right? Too much money is being paid out to their vendors and overspending on some of their vendors. And so they really define success as to how do I protect Chevron's financial investments, dollars protected. They were focused on protecting dollars and revenue from going out to third-party providers. They weren't focused on counting the number of contracts that they actually processed. So they built into the procurement team a true workload from day one. And then because of that, the CFO didn't need to be convinced that AI was valuable, because the procurement team did a great job messaging on the front end the true business impact and revenue savings and cost containment savings from our Kira solution. So that was a key difference. And so if we can go to the next slide, please. This is sort of an interesting framework that folks may want to think about using when they're looking at acquiring AI solutions or other legal technology. I mean, the first thing to do is think about whose problem is this? What problem are we trying to solve? It shouldn't be necessarily a legal team's or a general counsel's problem. It should be problems or challenges presented by finance, maybe procurement, by your business clients, the product team. So really, try to be empathetic to the needs of your business clients as much as possible, because you want to be able to demonstrate that true business value. Find whoever is the business stakeholder. When you're thinking about employing AI or other legal technologies. Is it finance? Is it the sales team? Is it the HR team? Think about who your business stakeholders are, who you're helping. And then a second key area is say to yourself, well, what business metric is being improved here, right? We love to use phrases and words like productivity, and efficiency, but try to go a little bit deeper as to what that means. If you're saving time, that's great, but then how does that time which you save enables you to do something else which may be more meaningful to the business, maybe spending more time on more strategic work for the business. Maybe it's helping to close an important acquisition, or maybe it's helping you to drive more closure of sales deals so that you can close revenue at a sooner period of time. So just don't think in terms of platitudes when you think about efficiency or productivity, but really try to isolate and identify what is the true business outcome when you're using that technology, and how is that going to help the business. And then third, are you going to be in a position to really articulate to the CFO why this implementation or this technology really mattered? Think about having other people who can be champions in your story, right? So it's not just the general counsel or the contracts lead going to the CFO as to why this technology investment was valuable to your business. See if you can get business champions, whether they're from marketing, from HR, from procurement, from compliance, who can help tell your story regarding the good impact that using this technology will have on the business. And so, Ryan did that, right? He was able to connect the procurement team who helped articulate, what they were doing to the CFO at Chevron. And by having other people who can assist you in articulating that story, right? Friendlies, people who are like going to be able to be a key stakeholder with you, also helps you provide your justification in case regarding the business outcomes that technology will be having. If we can move to the next slide, please. And this is something which I'm seeing more and more in some of the leaders which I work with in Latera. I report to our CFO. She's terrific. She also likes to see things in sort of a visual, sort of graphic, whether it's slides, whether it's dashboards. So, think about when you're putting your story together, figure out how do you put together like a dashboard or sort of depict in dollars saved or in some sort of meaningful business quantifiable fashion, some visually appealing way so that the CFO or other senior leaders can really understand the true business impact and value for the solutions that you're deploying. And just a few examples here, right? Preventing risk in terms of minimizing $5 million in liability exposures, helping to drive the business and enable the business forward by closing a certain amount of deals closer, maybe closing those deals not just in Q2 or 3, but maybe in Q1, and how you and your team help do that and bring in that revenue sooner. How you reduced cost and using perhaps outside counsel on certain matters, and you've brought more matters back into the in-house legal team to do, or maybe you're minimizing your spend with outside legal services providers. I mean, these are all true business measurements, their impact, they show outcomes. So again, don't focus too much on platitudes or activities or inputs, but really translate that into the true value and outcomes, which is based in dollars if you can, because that will resonate more with your senior business leaders like a CFO or a CEO. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So want to just share some thoughts here on some frameworks, practical frameworks that you can use moving forward with in speaking and conversing with your senior business leaders. Oftentimes lawyers or general counsels may go to their CFO or their CEO for certain additional budgetary needs. And you may go to your CEO and you can say, oh, well, we need an additional $200,000 from the budget so that we can have this terrific AI contracting tool. And you can go in there and sort of make that pitch, but that pitch becomes better, I guess, and more credible if you can demonstrate how that investment will yield true business impact and outcomes. So if you could show how that $200K investment will yield, higher financial returns in terms of being able to protect any revenue leakage or to lower costs with vendors or other third parties, or if it can help you close deals sooner, with customers, so you can capture those revenues sooner. And if you could show how much revenue could be captured earlier if you're using a contract AI tool, which allows you to move with more speed, to me, from my perspective, that's much more valuable to be able to state your case to a CFO or CEO regarding your technology and investment. So a key point here is think about having a true value-based approach. Propose an investment which has expected returns. Make sure you've got something there which shows that by making this investment, it's going to yield strong business outcomes in the not so distant future. And this is exactly what Ryan did, with the Chevron team. He didn't ask for money for Kira. He proposed really an investment to solve a business problem in terms of revenue leakage with true quantifiable returns. And that's really true value-based budgeting. And obviously, it helps you earn more trust with your clients. And the next time around, when you're seeking some additional funding and they've seen that your legal AI or other legal tech investments have borne out to drive business impact, they're going to be more open to approve other investments in the future. If we can go to the next slide, please. So a nice sort of nifty framework here is this 4-part value narrative, which you may want to use as a methodology or framework when you're communicating the value of legal initiatives with senior business executives. The first is that it starts with a true business problem that you're trying to resolve. Not a legal problem, but a business problem. As an example, vendors potentially overbilling, your company. That's a big pain point, right, for senior business leaders, right? Or perhaps you need to review, instead of saying, well, we need to review contracts more quickly, think again about the true dollar value which you're trying to achieve as part of the business problem. And then part 2 of this is with regard to AI capabilities, talk about the AI tool which you're interested in acquiring and using. Don't get into necessarily a lot of detail about it. Maybe provide a sentence or 2 overview as to what the AI tool is going to do, but you don't need to get much deeper than that. A third key part here is to highlight the true business outcomes. State business outcomes for your investment in terms of business metrics. As an example, we identified $3 million in billing discrepancies and we protected future revenue, right? Again, we're not talking about how many contracts were reviewed or how long it took, but we're talking about true, clear savings that this will yield, business savings in terms of hard dollars by using an AI tool or other legal technology. And a fourth key point here in this value narrative is to connect back to the strategic impact of using AI solutions or other legal tools. Maybe talk about how, or explain how this intelligence and the data which you're deriving from Kira or other AI tools now helps improve our strategy in negotiating with partners or vendor or other vendors. It could provide us with maybe a competitive advantage in the finance group or other stakeholders. And this is all what Ryan did, right? In articulating this to his senior business leaders to be able to get this investment and to really demonstrate and showcase the business output and impact that using Kira has helped Chevron. And so if we can go to the next slide, please. This is, I think, just sort of a nice, simple, sort of easy sentence that you can use when you're thinking about AI tools or other legal tools which you want to be able to adopt in your enterprise. So this is maybe some homework for you, if you will. When you get back to the office or if you work remotely, say to yourself, when you're using a particular tool, you want a particular tool, how will this tool help a particular business segment in your organization or key business stakeholders, whether it's procurement, HR, finance, sales teams, right? How will it achieve a certain business goal, which is important to them? And then it's going to be measured by a particular dollar amount or metric, whether it's saving money by a certain amount or maybe helping you capture a certain amount in a potential revenue by being able to use these tools. So, using this sentence really forces you to identify your business champion, helps define your outcome, and then it also establishes your success metric, really your key performance indicator, if you will. And this is exactly what Ryan and his team did to have the successful deployment of Kira. And so, when you think about this at the end of the day, it's kind of interesting. I'm at our sales kickoff conference, our SKO event here in Orlando, and it's great to be invited to this event. It provides me the opportunity to connect with our key salespeople and to try to learn more about them and how my team and I can support them. But where you want to be at the end of the day, if you're a general counsel or a senior in-house lawyer, is it's a great time when your CEO or if your CFO mentions how the work which you're doing and using legal AI or another legal technology, how that has helped you advance the business forward because you caught a risk at an earlier point in time. Or if they articulate how using this technology helped you capture deals and bring in deals from Q3 into Q2. If you're recognized in that public fashion at an SKO event or an all hands meeting, that to me is a great outcome for general counsels and legal teams and for contract teams. So I don't know if we have any more slides, Juliana team, or maybe we're up to the Q&A piece of our session today. Yeah.
Yes, we're up to the Q&A. And the first one that I have is for Ryan. Dennis, I'm sure you've dealt with this as well, but I'm going to direct it to Ryan if he can come back on screen or go off mute. How do you recommend selecting the best solutions given how many options are out there?
Yeah, that's a hard one because especially now, it seems like there's a new software vendor popping up every week. So you really got to determine, what's your business problem that you're trying to solve, and does that solution solve your specific problem? Everyone's going to say, yeah, we can do that, but you gotta check that before you actually invest in it, because we've had situations where we've been told one thing and then we see let's actually try it out, and then it doesn't actually do exactly what we need it to do. So just make sure you have a business problem that you're trying to solve. You're not just saying, well, I want an AI tool. Well, okay, well then you can pick any if that's your goal, is to have an AI tool. But you need to have a specific business problem that you're trying to solve, and then find a few options that say they can do that, and test them out and pick the best one that fits that solution.
An amazing answer. And with 1 minute left, everyone who asked additional questions will return them via email. I'm going to push us to the request a demo QR code here and close us for today. I do want to thank Ryan so much from Chevron for being on, and Dennis, thank you for jumping in with some of the technical difficulties that we had today. It's amazing to be part of the same organization that you're a part of. Let me know if you have any additional questions. Please put them in here. I will address them after. And thank you so much. Dennis and Ryan, do you have any final remarks?
No, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you again.
Yes.
Yeah, no, thanks for everyone for taking the time out to participate in this session. We really appreciate it. And Ryan and the Chevron team, thank you for being a great customer.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.